I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, a decent respect requires that they declare the causes which impel to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to establish new government.
Good morning. My name is George Benavides, and I'm back again because my library has been taken down. It's been hijacked. You know, and you have to ask yourself this. How many of you went to your library in your schools? Raise your hand. How many of you walked into a library in your elementary school, high school, middle school, and found a Texas history book or world history? How many of you found books in your library? A law book, a Federal Digest, Supreme Court cases. I mean, you know, why would you want to take down a library that's got information? If the Library of Congress provides the American people the corruption of our government. What's the purpose of a watchdog? Okay? I mean, you make it seem like I am the only one that's got evidence to this crime that's been going on. The Library of Congress gets all the information for you. The CIA holds all the corruption. And all it takes is a FOIA for you to get that information. So why am I being obstructed? Today's podcast, we're going to talk about obstructed justice. My name is George Benavides. I'm a disabled veteran with schizophrenia. I have ESP, extrasensory perception. I have magic powers. I am broadcasting my life 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm remotely controlled by 2 satellites, one north and one south. But it doesn't stop me from having the right to free speech. Everyone has the right to free speech. Everyone has the right to protest. Okay? Havana syndrome is not a disease. It's an act of war. Okay? It's an act of war unleashed against society, unleashed against Americans for over 72 years. The only things that have changed, during this time frame and timeline is the antennas and cameras put in our neighborhoods. Every 4th mile, you see an antenna or a Gwyn Tower that's popping up, tapping into our phones, detecting us, GPSing us, geofencing us without a warrant. And all this is being led up by the FISA court or Rule 702. Rule 702 says that we have to be foreigners. You know, we're not foreigners. We're Americans. If you own a Social Security card, if you pay taxes, if you were born in the United States, you are an American citizen. You are given the right to the Constitution. They're attacking me here. So yeah, I mean, you know, we have constitutional rights. You know, a child is born, is accidentally dropped by a doctor. That's a lawsuit. The child has a right to a lawsuit. If you slip and fall in a grocery store on a banana, you have the right to a lawsuit. You have the right to redress the government for grievances. If someone uses it as a non-consensual test subject, you have the right to redress the government for grievances. That's your constitutional right. And it should never be infringed upon or obstructed in any way. So we're not a third world country. The U.S. Supreme Court is still open. Federal courts are open. Municipality courts are open. So we're not a third world country. Everybody has to abide by a constitution. Today I want to talk about who is responsible for negligence with malice, with the intent to incite war for 72 years. Who would you say is responsible for all the silent weapons? And I'm going to give you an agenda today. We're going to stick with this agenda here. Okay. There's my topic today. Okay. Obstructed justice. The first topic I'm going to talk about is the Moscow Signal. Henry Kissinger, the Secret Service, and Department of State. Why in that order? Well, Henry Kissinger took evidence. The Department of State investigated and Secret Service investigated. Okay? They investigated a silent weapon. Okay? Who is responsible for the silent war is my question. Did local authorities investigate this? No. The Secret Service and Department of State had the evidence that beyond a reasonable doubt that Americans, diplomats, and their family members were being attacked in Moscow, in New York, and in Washington. And you're going to see this right now. And we'll take break and intermission, but I want to know from your answer, who is responsible for investigating the silent weapon that's been plaguing our country for 72 years? As more satellites go up, as 6G becomes powerful under our flesh, who's responsible? Ask yourself, who's responsible? And who would you think is responsible for investigating this? The Moscow Signal was the first case of a silent weapon. And there were different names given to this silent weapon. Signal weapon, directed energy weapon, microwave weapon. And it's all become a reality. Because Savannah Syndrome, aka Anonymous Health Incidents, has 3 topics. 1, it says, well, it's a microwave energy weapon. 2, it's a neurological weapon. And 3, it's a directed energy weapon. There's 3 topics given to the Moscow Signal, aka Anonymous Health Incidents. All of which have been identified back in the early 50s, 60s, and 70s by the Moscow Signal. Okay? We're going to look at some evidence here. And the reason why, like I said, as long as my library is down, I'm going to continue on presenting the facts. Okay? I'm trying to give you the facts, but they're blocking me from presenting the facts. And we're going to give you the facts that beyond a reasonable doubt or the burden of proof, whichever case you're in, that Americans have been under attack for over 72 years with a secret society, a secret war. So help me God. Okay. So, like I said, Dr. Henry Kissinger was involved. So was the Secret Service and so was the Department of State. They were the ones to investigate this. They took evidence, okay? I'd like to see those files and how big was the investigation. There was an agency developed on this investigation. It was called Bureau of Employees Compensation that compensated Americans and spouses or family members that were targeted, okay? I'd like to see those paychecks that were cut. Who cut the paychecks? When were they cut? How much money was paid out? Okay? I'd like to see those records too. There was also a lawsuit that developed in all this too, okay? That's all evidence I would like to see. But as long as they block my library from being posted, I'm going to keep on verbatimly talking, and I'm going to present the facts. I'm going to hammer it out, man, because my civil rights have been violated. I'm used as a non-consensual test subject and under attack 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in electronic prison. It's an electronic prison. Okay? They know where I'm going. They've entrapped me in this war for over 32 years, and they're mapping me out using satellite, drones, electronic warfare, and artificial intelligence, using neighbors' cameras and stuff like that to manipulate my mind. That's entrapment. It's in violation of my Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, so help me God. Okay? And as long as I keep on obstructing justice, because they are. We're in court. I got 3 pending court cases, and my library has been submitted to the courts. So if you tamper with federal evidence, you go to jail. Okay? Thank you. Stand by. So, the Moscow signal was evident that Americans were being victimized back in the early 60s and 70s. Okay? And like I said, we're going to watch a quick video and then we're going to go into the Moscow signal, okay? Because these weapons were used in the Moscow signal. We're actually going to give you evidence of the Moscow signal attacks in Moscow, Washington, and New York, and then we'll jump into the rest here. Let me just get that evidence to you here just a minute. Okay, so here's a letter indicating there was a murder. A wife of a diplomat stationed in Moscow was murdered. Read the letter. She was murdered. Why murder? Because the Pentagon told you they developed the weapon. They know how this is being played out. Someone's been foul playing diplomats and Americans overseas and here abroad. And they're abroad. Okay, we'll go back again. They're cutting me out here. There's a memo and there's a letter indicating that someone had been murdered. Second page. Third page. Okay, that's indication of a tort. Someone's been hurt. You have a diplomat that's been attacked and his wife was attacked, causing cancer, where they killed her. Okay? Now, the evidence that this is happening back in Washington, D.C., right here. It happened in Washington and New York, too, back in the early 60s and 70s. And we're going to clarify that, too. I mean, you can't hide this. This is all in the history books in our libraries. The same library that I'm developing. Why would you want to obstruct my library from being produced as free speech and evidence to help the targeted individual? Why would you want to do that? You know, you want that information. It's easy to get to. It's a tool. Why would you want to obstruct that? Anything in that thing is obscenity? Hell no, it's all facts. It's all history. History's repeated itself. The only thing I've done is chronologically ordered it, put it in order for you to have. Why would you want to obstruct that? So the Moscow signal was also reported in Washington and in New York. Okay? And here's an article right here that says it. This is a well-documented American article. It's the facts. It's nothing made up by an AI. That's the facts. That is a documented evidence in the Library of Congress. That's a congressional piece of note right there. And it says, Glassboro, New Jersey, June 25th, 1967. Memorandum of Conversation. Signals against Embassy, Moscow Chancery. Participant was the Secretary of State, Ambassador Linwell E. Thompson, Soviets, Foreign Minister Gromyko, and Ambassador Dobrynin. The Secretary said, we were very much concerned at electromagnetic signal directed against our Chancery building in Moscow. Once again, the name for that is electromagnetic signal directed against our Chancery. The radiation from the signal was of level higher than the Soviet experts considered safe. We did not know the purpose of this activity, and he was not suggesting that it was intended to harm our personnel, but he was asked that the matter be investigated and activity stopped. Mr. Gromkin expressed skepticism and asked if they were really sure of what the Secretary had said. Ambassador Thompson said there was no doubt whatever about it. This had been going on for some time. He drew a rough diagram to indicate where the signal was coming from and where it was directed. Ambassador Dobrynin said there were similar activities both against the Soviet mission in New York as well as the Soviet embassy in Washington. So, and not only in Moscow, but in Washington and New York. So if you were stationed in that era and you were being microwaved, if you died of that, well, that's Havana syndrome. Okay, that's part of the symptoms here, or part of the claim. I'd probably claim that. Okay, here's Mr. Dobrynin, the Llewellyn Dobrynin. That's him right there. They killed that guy. They constantly radiated him, killed him, bleeding out of his orifices. I mean, that's deadly stuff, folks. Probably deserves a Purple Heart or some kind of congressional medal for taking hits like that from, And then on top of that, they had blamed an apartment complex. They had blamed an apartment complex directed across the embassy, coming from an apartment complex. Because it said it was directed to the embassy, right? And so they got a diagram was drawn. It was directed from an apartment 50 feet to the embassy. Like my neighbor is directed on me, across from me, to the right of me, to the left, and across the street. It's directed to me, to attack me. That's been investigated by the Secret Service and Department of State already. They drew a map that it was directed at the embassy staff, penetrating the walls, penetrating the shingles, the rooftop, the tar, to get to someone, to get to a diplomat. It's criminal trespassing. Directed energy weapon. So, with that said, I mean, these weapons have been used a long time, folks, okay? And like I said, according to the investigation, it said that the beam was 50 feet, as it says in the diagram, right here. Okay. Henry Kissinger, who was part of this investigation, who died, personally, I thought he was murdered. He knew too much. And he probably wouldn't stand a chance in a skiff, so I don't know why they probably just killed him off or something, in my opinion. See, what the government's got to understand is that people that are involved in this in history, you have to put that in history books, because that is true. That's true history. Okay? And when people pass like that, you got to document that stuff, folks. I mean, that is world history. That is facts. That's an ongoing crime that's been committed against Americans. Okay? So, what he says here, What he says here in the diplomacy back in 1967, if you read the article, what he mentioned, Henry Kissinger, what did he say? The Moscow Signal declassified microwave diplomacy 1967, 1977. Declassified records detail diplomatic efforts to end microwave radiation directed at Moscow embassy. Kissinger Dobrynin, we are trying to keep the thing quiet. You could give me a radiation treatment. We are trying to keep it quiet because you can give me a radiation treatment. Right there, verbatimly. Okay? All right? So with that in mind, we got to go now to the people that investigated, the source that investigated, and how they investigated that. And here's an article right here by the Foreign Service Journal. Before Havana Syndrome, there was a Moscow signal. Okay? Today's Havana Syndrome is like deja vu all over again, as Yogi Berra might have put it, by James Shoemaker. Okay? This is all facts. It's all evidence. This thing's been lingering on for a long time, over 72 years, folks. 72 years of history that's been denied and neglected by our government from passing laws. And we're going to cover that. Who's liable? Okay? Now, the video here indicates that there was some kind of foul play. They thought it was the Russians. They're blaming the Russians. No, it's not. You know, the government's not. Well, it's not. But these weapons have been bought by the embassy. Now they're tampering with my. They're tampering with my thing. They don't want me to. They don't want me to speak on. They're blocking my free speech. Don't block my free speech. You're blocking my free speech and you're blocking my library and obstructing justice. Okay, we got to present the facts. They're killing Americans overnight. Okay, and they might kill me next, but I have to present this as evidence. Here's a video, a short video.
In 1953, the Russians began to bombard the U.S. Embassy in Moscow with electromagnetic radiation in the microwave spectrum, but the fact was kept secret from the embassy employees. U.S. Ambassador Stossel contracted a blood disease, bleeding eyes, nausea, and eventually lymphoma. He and other employees eventually died as a result of the microwave attacks. Dr. Henry Kissinger sent a secret memo giving hazard pay to embassy personnel in the 1970s. Before the attacks, the USSR had met with the U.S. to try to head off an arms race in electromagnetic weapons, but were refused. In retaliation, they began microwaving the U.S. Embassy. It is possible that the U.S. government took advantage of the situation and used the embassy staff as microwave guinea pigs. The Department of Defense's Advanced Research Projects Agency, ARPA, set up a lab at Walter Reed Army Institute of Research and participated in Project Pandora. Scientists began zapping monkeys to study the biological effects of highly concentrated microwave frequencies. Similar studies were conducted at the VA hospital in Kansas City.
Similar studies were conducted at the VA hospital, Kansas City. Similar studies were conducted at the VA hospital in Kansas City. And we'll visit that later on. Well, I gave you a whole thing, a whole podcast on that VA, what the VA knew. That was in there. So the Moscow signal was investigated. It was investigated by a lead of experts who had countermeasures to investigate the silent weapon. Some of the devices they used were outdated, but we have more sophisticated countermeasures. Okay? So, in my opinion, I mean, who do you think's liable? Personally, I think it's the FBI, but the FBI's attacked. You know, So who's liable for investigating this? Attacks on Americans and American soil. Who's responsible? We had a technician from the Department of State, who investigated it. He was a technician. Masculine Muser, the State Department security technician who first identified the Moscow signal in the early 1960s. Okay, history of the Bureau of Diplomatic Security of the United States Department of State. That's all library. You find it in a library. Okay. It says here, and I'll give you the facts right there. U.S. technicians first detected the energy rays in 1953, shortly after the embassy opened, but only began to actively monitor the radiation rays in early as 1960s. A technician from the State Department of Bureaus of Diplomatic Security, Masculine Muser, identified them as microwave radiation and reported it in 1963 that the beam was 50 feet across. From the embassy, which is identified right there in the drawing. That it was 50 feet across from the embassy, directed at the American citizens. An invisible weapon. How did you record that is my question. How did you record that? And where are the notes and where's the countermeasure on that? Department of the State. Okay. And then you had a Secret Service agent from the Secret Service who investigated this. U.S. Secret Service Special Agent James O. Golden served on the security detail during the Vice President Nixon's July 1959 trip. They were headed to the Soviet Union with John T. Sherwood detected radiation aimed at Nixon's living quarters at the Spazzle House. And the article right here says, read the article right there. Before microwave Havana syndrome, Soviet used radiation against Nixon. It's what the accusations are. But then it says that the U.S. Navy was also involved. That the U.S. Navy was also involved in investigating this. Read that article. Washington, D.C., September 22nd, 2022. It was issued by an investigative source. It says, using detection devices known as a radiac dosimeter, Nixon's Secret Service detail measured significant levels of radiation in and around Nixon's sleeping quarters at the Spazzle House, the resident of U.S. ambassador during the first days of his trip. Okay? And it says the U.S. Navy was also involved, the U.S. Navy. It says, on the first evening of the 23rd day of July 1959, the dosimeter readings climbed rapidly, leading a senior military official in the leading the senior military official in the entourage of Admiral Hyman Rickover, an expert on nuclear naval propulsion, to suspect that there had been a nuclear accident. Rickover and the U.S. Ambassador Lyndon Thompson agreed not to tell Nixon. I mean, they were assuming that, well, their assumption was that there was some kind of nuclear accident. That's what the Navy proposal was. That there was a nuclear accident. They're going to go by a nuclear accident. Okay. So, like I said, I mean, there was an investigation into all this, and they had all the details. Okay. So, we have to question who is liable for this investigation of Havana syndrome. Who's liable? Where are the records? Because people got paid. Okay. They got paid they got paid for filing the claim. There were payments cut to people that were part of the Moscow signal. You heard the video. And there was an agency developed. There was an agency that compensated victims back in the early 50s, 60s, and 70s. If you read the memo, it says here, as you are aware, an employee who served in Moscow during the period of 1960 to 1962 filed a claim with the Bureau of Employees' Compensation, contending that their signal was responsible for the development of cancer by his wife. So they were filing claims back in 1960, 1970. Where did that agency go? Who would tell me that? Where the paperwork? How many checks were cut? Who got paid? Okay, the government has to have that source. They developed the Bureau of Employees Compensation Agency. How many checks were cut? Who got paid? How many victims were they? How many families were involved? Were there children involved, family involved? I mean, that has to be investigated. That has to come out. All right. So those are questions that has to be answered. Who's responsible for investigating Havana syndrome is what I'm asking. Who's responsible? We're going to move on to my next topic, which is going to be the Eugene signal, the Navy versus the FCC. The Eugene signal is another documented evidence of Americans being victimized in the United States back in the early 70s. So they got bored in Moscow, got bored in New York, and got bored in Washington, so that they began to attack people in Eugene, Oregon. Okay? Here's a story of the Eugene, Oregon case. Go right into that right now. No one believed me. I was being attacked. That I'm hearing voices. No one believed me. Oh, you're crazy. Okay, well, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at the evidence. Take a look at the facts. We're presenting facts today, okay? No one believed me. Oh, you're nuts. Get out of here. It's not happening in your city. You're crazy. Okay, well, here we go. Here's the facts, folks. This is a Eugene, Oregon signal that's been around since the 1970s. You can't make this up. The Eugene signal lasted probably, but it was during the 1970s, but it lasted for several months, I think a couple of years. But it re-picked up again. They found it again, and there was a city council member, a doctor, that was testifying on behalf of the signal that appeared again all of a sudden. But it was devastating because, of course, it appeared again. But back in the days, they were blaming it on microwaves, appliances, that they were causing these types of things, and that's false. Okay, here we go. We're going to go into the the Eugene signal in Oregon. Here's a little video.
Remote alterations of mood.
Here's a little video of the Eugene, Oregon signal. Okay, you can't make this stuff up, folks. Okay.
The disruption to our brain function from ever-growing layer upon layer of cumulative and chronic electromagnetic fields, combined with the velocity of information that we have access to, is fragmenting us continually, impairing our ability to pay attention and to learn.
In March 1978, a story in the Eugene Register Guard announced the discovery of a mysterious radio signal that had been beaming the entire town of Eugene, Oregon for several years. The article begins, "A powerful radio signal that may be affecting human health has been monitored in several Eugene locations and in the air 3,000 feet above the city. The source of the radio signal is unknown." By the time the headline appeared, University of Oregon industrial hygienist Marshall Van Oort had been attempting to get public health and federal agencies involved for months, with claims that many Eugene residents were suffering a wide array of health issues, including headaches, insomnia, coordination problems, ear and throat problems, and more. According to a July 1985 article by Operation Mind Control author Walter Boart and co-author Richard Sutton, which I found in the CIA's declassified documents database, a middle-aged Eugene man named Walter Duposky had contacted Van Oort for help after witnessing strange vibrations in his home and suffering horrible symptoms for 2 years. Duposky had not only suffered from insomnia and burning corneas, but he was also hearing voices. Van Oort became disturbed after he came down with the same symptoms while in Duposky's home. Van Oort himself also noticed the signal in his own home, which he described as a high-pitched, barely audible sound accompanied by a stuffiness in both ears. His symptoms included, among other things, a reddening of the skin. The sound and symptoms disappeared when he left his house. The signal itself was described as a radio frequency pulse signal, a 4.75 megahertz pulse occurring at 1,100 times per second. It had been recorded inside multiple homes in multiple locations throughout Eugene, but it was also measured at 3,000 feet above the city and extending northward toward neighboring Corvallis. The signal had been measured at power intensities as high as 500,000 watts. 10 times the level of the most powerful AM radio station licensed by the FCC at the time. Van Oort's plea in the newspaper article for public assistance was due to what he said was sluggishness on the part of government agencies to get involved in the matter. One public health official was quoted as saying that he was worried about a stampede of imaginative patients on one hand, but a potentially serious health problem being laughed off as flying saucerism on the other. Comments in the piece left the impression that everyone was kicking the can down the road because no one wanted to touch the issue of non-thermal biological effects arising from microwaves, a reality the Russians had scientifically established for decades at that point, with hundreds of studies showing everything from negative genetic effects to neurological and behavioral effects.
As soon as the electronic age really dawned in a big way, and that really happened in World War II, when all kinds of devices were being played with, and radar was invented, and that was actually a game changer.
But in America, such research had been dominated almost exclusively by the US military, who ostensibly discounted the Russian research as scientifically unsound, and upheld the same assertion they'd been spouting since the late 40s, that only microwaves which cause thermal effects were harmful or dangerous.
The fact is, radiation involves something called microwaves, and there are differing views on how much radiation is bad for your health.
There is no doubt among medical specialists that microwave radiation can produce medical problems.
Those who own microwave ovens are well familiar with the cooking effect, and these are high-intensity effects. That's well established. The more controversial are the non-thermal or the effects of microwave, such as the neurological effects.
Neurological?
Well, effects on the nervous system, irritability, sleepiness, memory loss, headaches,
Following World War II, the U.S. military set a 10 milliwatts per square centimeter microwave frequency safe exposure standard that was based solely on calculations and not on reality, a standard 1,000 times lower than the Russian standard, and one that would ensure U.S. military use of EMF could go on unabated. Dr. Robert O. Becker, author of multiple books on biology and electromagnetism, discusses at length how the military's entire system of command, control, communications, and intelligence was dependent upon the unrestricted use of all frequencies in the electromagnetic spectrum. Thus, the questionable 10 milliwatts per square centimeter safety standard was an absolute necessity. The thermal concept was extended to all parts of the electromagnetic spectrum, and non-thermal bioeffects were completely excluded under a banner of denial that such effects even existed.
Microwave radiation from a cell phone could use up to 2.4 billion cycles a second at less than 1 watt of power. And I believed, as many scientists still do today, that because the power was so weak, the fact that the signal was the same frequency meant it had no biological effect. That belief, it's like a religious conviction among some physicists, is in fact not correct.
Once in place, the position was considered a matter of national security to defend, and the Defense Department carried out so-called scientific studies, which were dubious at best, to uphold it.
In the 1980s, the Air Force did this $5 million experiment. It was supposed to be the big experiment, the be-all, end-all experiment. It was funded by the Air Force to show that these microwaves are fine and not going to cause any problem. And what's interesting about it is they spent $5 million and they did it with this notobiotic rats, which is a term meaning German virus-free. Unless you were born in a cesarean section and then kept in sterile conditions your whole life and lived in one of those plastic bubbles like Bubble Boy, you're not going to be notobiotic. So the conditions of the study right from the onset were rigged, basically, with this $5 million. In fact, that's why it cost so much, because they had to buy these fancy rats to do it, which is kind of ridiculous. And it seems to me that they set it all up with those rats in the hopes that it would show everything was fine. What it actually showed was 18 of the rats that were exposed to the microwaves ended up with cancer versus only 5 in the control group. And then they tried to pull that crap about how B-star rats always get cancer anyway, which just begs the question of why would you do a study with rats that you know are going to get cancer anyway? This kind of makes the whole study pointless. They said that with GMOs and other stuff too. Oh, well, those rats always get cancer. Well, then why'd you do the study? So they had these fancy rats, Bubble Boy rats, and 18 of them got cancer anyway. And guess where the cancer was? The cancer was primarily in the adrenal glands, the thyroid, and the pituitary gland. Nowhere else. That should tell you something. In fact, I'd say that tells you a lot more than anything, that even though they had the fancy Bubble Boy rats, the rats still got freaking cancer. A lot of them. But they tried to push this off in Scientific American that this is just great. It shows that non-ionizing radiation has no health effects. The military-industrial complex is there to ensure that the military-industrial complex will continue going. And whatever they have to do to keep that happening, they will fund that and make that happen. We are now being exposed to 1 million times the microwave radiation in our environment over 30 years ago. And all of the science going back 60 years that says that this is okay for you is tied to the military-industrial complex and the government.
Dr. Hilton Zared is an expert on the health effects of microwaves who has served as a consultant to the government.
The government officials don't have enough information to say that it's safe or without harmful effects.
This can be found in peer-review-based scientific journals, but until now has not been in the public domain.
All manner of tricks were used to uphold this policy. Government research funds were purposefully allocated or withheld to ensure that the only projects carried out in this area would not challenge the thermal effects only rule. Disinformation was used to create false impressions.
Research to date has not demonstrated hazardous effects
For example, statements such as, "There is no evidence for any effects of pulsed magnetic fields on humans," would have been literally true at the time, but the statement ignores the litany of such effects being found in laboratory animals, and ignores the fact that no such tests had been officially conducted on humans in the US at the time. In the background, documentation on the effects of EMF was being collected and stashed away from public consumption. In just one example of many, a 1959 CIA scientific intelligence report on the Soviet space program, which was not declassified until 2008, plainly discusses the fact that data from both Russian and American studies showed that, quote, "electromagnetic energy of appropriate frequency and appropriately used might cause a variety of mental effects, including obliteration of memory, stimulation of memory, and hallucinations." A document from the Joint Publications Research Service out of Arlington, Virginia, on the effects of non-ionizing electromagnetic radiation, only declassified in part in 2012, but dated 1977, the year before the Eugene signal story broke, states that in the comparing of modulated EMF experiments with research on the action of psychopharmacological agents, quote, "we could note almost complete similarity in the spectrums of their action upon emotional reactions and the states of animals." In other words, by the 1970s, they found that modulated EMF could affect people's emotional states the same way psychotropic drugs could.
Scientist who did not want his identity revealed.
Okay, there you have it. Okay, the Eugene signal lasted for a long time. Okay, what I'm going to present to you is a document of a debate and argument by the FCC and the U.S. Navy, where the FCC was halted from investigating the Eugene signal and blamed it on the U.S. Navy. Okay, stay tuned. We're going to take a little break and I'll come back. I'm going to come back with more facts and more history. Who's responsible? Who's going to step up and take the responsibility to investigate this? Okay, because it's really an act of fraud. You're coercing people to leave their homes, leave their marriages, leave their jobs, to take a welfare pension when they went to school, paid hard money to go to school, and now they're back in a welfare system of corruption, racketeering, human trafficking. Come on, who's going to take responsibility? Okay, is my question. Because Americans are being assaulted with a deadly weapon, deadly force. Okay? We can't make this stuff up. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Like I said, we're going to look at some evidence here, because we're all being remotely accessed. But if you look at the history, look at the evidence on the documents in Eugene, Oregon. Okay, that city was chosen for an experiment. FCC backs off from naming the signal source. Citizens offer a host to cause for the signal. Mystery signal discovered in Eugene area. Six Eugene areas where preliminary tests revealed unidentified radio frequency. Mystery signal discovered in Eugene, Oregon, in the Eugene area. And last but not least, the evidence was covered by the Eugene newspaper. If you read that article there, it says right there. There was confrontation between the FCC and the Navy. It says here, read the first paragraph. The mysterious radio signal that some Eugene residents say turned their skin red and caused other health problems are not coming from outer space, but from a naval operation in Alameda, California, a federal communications official said Tuesday. Read the first paragraph. The Navy's blamed for all this. Okay. Now I want you to hear, because we're all experiencing it across the globe, but there's a doctor that came forward to testify in Eugene City Hall. And I want you to hear his testimony. You can't make this stuff up, folks. These are people that have come forward and are complaining about this silent weapon. Okay. It's not going anywhere, but the facts are is that we're being denied an investigation, and they don't believe us. They call us crazy for what? Well, in my opinion, it's because if you're invested in medical care, if you're invested in psychological care and making a profit off that while you're beating down Americans with a secret weapon, that's kind of like racketeering, human trafficking. Okay, so it's really a white collar crime. Okay, so who's going to investigate it? This is Dr. I think his name is Dr. Baird, who testified in front of Eugene, Oregon City Council and talked about these weapons that are developed over the last year. It's deja vu. And right now they're attacking me too. They don't like me speaking about this, but I've got the facts. And when you destroy my library, I'm going to speak about this all day long. Because you're trying to cover up an act of espionage. Okay. Here you go. This is Dr. Paul Dart. Okay. Here we go. In Eugene, Oregon. The Eugene Signal.
CDC guidelines. But people developed symptoms, and the government funded an epidemiologic study.
Reduce the increase of exposure to these things in our town will be good for the health of this community. Anything we can do to delay cancer, it's the developability, pandemic, just a little more rev to polish effects. Mark, something to go gave you that you can't. I'm here to position in Eugene.
Josh Korn.
This is Eugene City Hall. This was 6 years ago, April 22nd, 2019.
Council, I appreciate this opportunity. I'm Paul Dart. I'm a physician in Eugene and South Eugene. I'm not sure which ward I'm in. I'm here to talk about 5G. I'm not here to tell you what the FCC says you can or can't do about it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm a physician who spent several years studying the health effects of pulse microwave cellular transmissions in detail. What I'm here to tell you is that there is clear documented evidence of harm from such exposures. And anyone who tells you that there really isn't that much known about the biological effects of this either hasn't done any research on it or is blowing smoke at you. I gave you some information a week ago. I believe it was put in your email in trays or whatever they do for you. One of those articles was something I wrote for eWeb in 2013, reviewing a lot of the research up to that point in time. The other was a review by Martin Paul, where a meta-review of other reviews of this. He reviewed about 95 different research reviews, about 90 of them are in this pile here. I just want to say there's a lot known. Things that we do know about this, it's not the problem that things aren't known, it's that policymakers aren't paying attention to the research results. We know that RF can cause neurological effects, anxiety, depression, cognitive issues. Right now, our record number of children in high school and young people in college are on anxiety and antidepressant medications in our city and elsewhere in the country. And we're all getting just a little more revved up, I think. And part of that is these exposures. We know that RF can cause sleep disturbance. The CDC says it's a public health epidemic now. If we have more RF in this town, we'll have more of that. And I think that if you could shield your home right now, you'd be surprised at how much better you would sleep. We know that RF can decrease fertility, and right now fertility rates in the developing world are dropping more rapidly than anybody understands and that anybody can explain with current models of explanation. We know that RF can cause cancer in humans and animals, and right now, brain tumors are one of the leading causes of cancer in young children. It's a big change. Anything we can do to reduce the increase of exposure to these things in our town will be good for the health of this community. Anything we can do to delay or slow this will be helpful. I think that it's possible 5G will kind of break the back of this whole problem by making all these issues more clear. And it would be better if that happened in a different community than ours. So I urge you to consider anything you can to delay this issue from happening here.
Thank you. Next speaker is David Corn, followed by Jared Corn.
Okay, that was testimony of an expert, medical expert, on 5G, 6G. But, you know, we know what 6G is capable of doing. President Trump said that, you know. So with that said, I mean, who's going to investigate this? The FCC, you know, the FBI. I mean, why are they allowing a weapon system to virtually take us under control and manipulate our minds and even inflict pain, bodily harm, imminent fear, you know, deadly force? You have neighbors in my neighborhood who have access to this war chest attacking me using deadly force to attack a veteran. Okay? So, okay, we're going to move on to the next thing here. We're going to move on to a CIA whistleblower who identifies that he helped build these weapons, that he helped build Havana Syndrome. Okay? And my question to you then is, if you built the weapon, where's the antidote to stop this? You built it, you should know the antidote to stopping all this, okay? And we're going to visit Dr. Robert Duncan and his testimony, because you can't make this stuff up. This is a CIA whistleblower who identifies that he built the weapon, but then he also witnessed it used against Americans, okay? Very controversial. Who's liable for all this, okay? This is Dr. Robert Duncan, who blew the whistle a long time ago with the CIA, who admits that he built the weapon, okay? But who's going to investigate it now? Who's going to stop all this? Who's going to investigate this? I mean, these people are attacking me now, trying to kill me. You have a damn concrete worker that was nobody, never served in the fucking armed forces, to the right of me here at 3712 Moon Hill Road. That's a concrete worker. All of a sudden is getting fabulous cars, new cars, and they're training him how to operate me because they're using me as a lab rat, training this guy. This guy's not even in the military. He was a concrete worker, for crying out loud. Training him how to attack me. Robert Duncan, here we go.
The CIA claims torture works. No-touch torture is a whole new topic, a whole new category. Most people don't believe it's happening. You can be tortured in your own home. No one will believe you. But this is torture, and I want there to be no doubt about it. This is torture, destruction of life, and a destruction to misery for all these people, the innocent Americans. And it's a war crime. It's a crime against humanity, for sure. They're trying to grasp all sorts of data from how effective can we make them kill each other themselves? How do you make a rational player go down to walk them to their death? The first logical thing they do is go to the police. Well, the police can't help you. They're going to give you a lockup and 72 hours and a psych ward.
One of the men behind the technology admits he created a monster. Dr. Robert Duncan put together the technology that allows the government to transmit thoughts and voices into the heads of Americans.
I've worked on projects for the CIA, Justice Department, Department of Defense.
So you know for a fact that these weapons that you worked on, they're being used domestically today?
Absolutely.
Are there citizens of this country that are being abused with this technology?
Worse than abused, that's a light word. They're being tortured. They easily could be broadcasting across the country messages to people and causing them extreme pain.
We've run into a few people that claim they got voices in their head. When they talk to us, they seem totally normal. Are these people crazy, or is the government doing this to them?
The government's doing this to them. They're called voice of God weapons.
So the targeted individuals aren't crazy after all.
These are people within our government at a certain level making these decisions, and they're not necessarily our president or our elected officials.
That's exactly right. They can't be removed, and they're difficult to find. They hide in the dark crevices of our government. These technologies that are being torturing people around the world, these type of weapons can make you kill yourself or others. They hide it in their news broadcasts. Oh, he's just crazy. They don't go any deeper. The colonel said, you can fight voices, and someone said, I will find a way to talk them to their death. I know a couple high-level former FBI that retired after in their 25 years of service or whatever, and they talk about how corrupt their agencies were. And those at the very top are very conniving, and as long as they can get away with it, they will. If the highest level of sort of criminal justice has failed this country, there is no hope.
And the Brain Invaders conspiracy. Dr. Robert Duncan put together the technology that allows the government to transmit thoughts and voices into the heads of Americans.
Dr. Robert Duncan. First question for you. What's negative about what you've done?
I've empowered the dark side by some of my work.
And what do you mean by that?
Technology is neutral. It can be used for good or evil.
Well,
I've worked on projects for the CIA, Justice Department.
Let's rewind a little bit here. I'm going to hold it up because you can hear about that.
Work.
Because
first question for you. What's
heads of Americans?
Here we go.
Dr. Robert Duncan. First question for you. What's negative about what you've done?
I've empowered the dark side by some of my work.
And what do you mean by that?
Technology is neutral. It can be used for good or evil. I've worked on projects for the CIA, Justice Department, Department of Defense.
Is this the stuff, voices in the head and things like that?
Yes.
We've run into a few people that claim they got voices in their heads, they sleep inside tinfoil boxes, they do a lot of crazy things, it seems. But when they talk to us, they seem totally normal, they seem totally sane. Are these people crazy, or is the government doing this to them?
The government's doing this to them.
He's not even bothering to hide it.
They're called voice of God weapons.
So you know for a fact that these weapons that you worked on, they're being used domestically today?
Absolutely. You have to remember, the CIA has a long history of experimenting on our citizens, from LSD.
Sure. Okay, we're talking here like going back to MK Ultra and all that in the 60s and 70s, but we were told all that stopped. Is that untrue?
Untrue. These programs continue under new names, new budgets. It's the ultimate weapon.
Are there citizens of this country that are being abused with this technology?
Worse than abused, that's a light word. They're being tortured.
enough said. I mean, that's a CIA operative who is informing the American people that, he helped build these weapons. And I'm being attacked by my neighbor here because they don't like me speaking about that. But I got free speech. You're tearing down my library. You're obstructing my library, obstructing justice, when you know for a fact there's a pending court case. I've given you notice. I published it on YouTube. I published it everywhere. Okay? Right to publication for social media. You understand that I got a federal court case. So, like I said, who's liable? Who's going to investigate it? It's been around for a long time. And he even says that. I want you to hear his conversation where he testifies with Dr. Lynn Beer saying, yeah, I do recognize and I did see Americans being targeted and tortured. Okay? In my opinion, this is my handler when I was in the armed forces. He's my handler when I was in the armed forces. You can't make this stuff up, folks.
With some interest. And I said, just wait when it starts happening to their agents, diplomats,
in 2020, team of experts that diagnosed Cuban diplomats. Duncan? Yes.
I have an Ivy League background, education. I've been studying and human rights activism for what is now currently termed Havana Syndrome. But this has been going on for quite some time. I worked for DARPA on projects for the CIA, for the Navy, for example, who wrote the Artificial Intelligence Code, tracked the Soviet nuclear submarine fleet. But about 20 years ago, I realized some of my research was being utilized on my own citizens. And that was unacceptable to me. And since then, I've done hundreds of interviews, interviewed 2,500 victims or targeted individuals, as they're called, found commonalities of all their stories. And I've spoken to with the head of the LA FBI, to the Senate Intelligence Committee, 23 senators and representatives, with some interest. And I said, just wait when it starts happening to their agents, diplomats, and the FBI. So interestingly, a story came out yesterday that it's happening to the FBI now.
What is your education for that?
Some of the most influential technologies.
There you have it. You have a CIA operative who built the weapon, who confronted Congress, who confronted the FBI, and told them, you just wait till it happens to the FBI. And it did. It happened to the FBI. But he helped build this damn weapon. Who is liable, folks? Who's going to investigate? Who's going to investigate? So then, Robert Duncan, notice this 20 years ago, and then you had a congressman by the name of Dennis Kucinich. Dennis Kucinich is a congressman from Ohio who did extensive work on Havana Syndrome and mind control, psychotronic warfare. He had a team of experts that you'll be hearing here in just a minute. And on October 2nd, 2001, he attempted to pass a bill, H.R. 2977, Space Preservation Act, giving the American people, me and you, equal protection of the law. You pass laws because you want to give the American people equal protection of the law. Okay? This congressman tried 4 times. On his last and final time, he had 25 signatures that were all shut down. Why? Why would you shut down a crime bill if a crime bill generates money for the courts, pays the power bills and utilities, gives a paycheck to the judges, gives a paycheck to law enforcement, and gives a paycheck to lawyers? Why would you not pass a crime bill unless you're involved in the conspiracy of killing Americans? You get me so far. Here we go. Congressman Dennis Kucinich. And they're trying to kill me. They're trying to quiet me. They're going to pull a John McCain on me. They're attacking me and try to pull a John McCain on me. You all know who John McCain is, right? They're trying to pull a John McCain on me, The technology is that fancy. If you have lymph nodes, let me just stop here just a minute. I'm going to add a little thing. Let me give you a picture of lymph nodes. I'm not a doctor, but I've worked in the medical field. You got to face reality. They're coming under the skin, folks. Your body has lymph nodes. The weapon is under your skin. If I can see your lymph node and attack that pea, that bean, I can inflate it like a balloon. And it can cause false symptoms. They can wrongfully diagnose you. Take a limb, take an arm. This weapon is designed to do that, okay? Your body have lymph nodes for a reason. Your body has lymph nodes for a reason. Okay? That's for a later time, later day. We're going to get into detail of this, okay? This is my podcast. You want to obstruct my library? You're not going to obstruct my speech. I'll take it to the U.S. Supreme Court, man. There have been several cases on free speech. You did it to President Trump. You won't do it to me because I'll fight you tooth and nail. I'll take it to the highest courts and we'll battle out from case to case. You can't beat a dead horse if it's already been ruled on it already. Come on, man. So we know he built the weapon and you know he warned the FBI, okay? Who's liable? Okay? Congressman Kucinich adopted or tried to pass a bill to give an equal protection of the law. But he was blocked 4 times. Okay? It's a conspiracy, guys. They didn't want the law to be passed because they didn't want anybody to tattletale on whoever's doing all this. Okay? They didn't want to tattletale. Because you know what? Hey, blow the fucking whistle. Get your $1 million. You're watching all that unfold. You're watching the neighbors attack me. You're watching the neighbors attack me. Hey, blow your whistle and get your $1 million. Okay? You're only in Congress for 4 years. You're only in the Senate for 4 years. You're watching the big picture. Hey, blow the whistle. Get your millions. Okay? Americans are dying. Stay tuned. We're going to come back on more of this silent weapon that's unleashed against Americans. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Okay? They are attacking us. They are coercing us. Okay? Stay tuned for more. I'm gonna give you the facts because that's all we have. They're trying to kill me to cover up an act of espionage. There's no doubt. Okay? They've been found. They've been caught. And now this 72-year silent war needs to come to justice. It's got to come to justice, folks. I mean, these people, we are dying. Okay? At some kind of secret society? Come on, folks. It's not right. Okay? It's not right what they're doing to the American people. All right? It's been going on for 72 years, folks. 72 years of torturing Americans, okay, with silent weapons, invisible weapons. And like I said, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's all facts, okay? It's all facts. I'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Just
Okay, but like I said, anytime a congressman drafts up a House bill, that's serious business, okay? That means that they have evidence that this war's been going on for a long time, okay? And someone's liable for that, okay? So Dennis Kucinich, the congressman from Ohio, attempted to save America from our crisis today. It's a crisis. It's a Holocaust, okay? Congressman Kucinich attempted to stop the terrorism we're facing today. He attempted not once, not twice, not 3 times. He attempted 4 times to warn the American people, giving us fair warning that something was coming, that we're going to be attacked. And with 25 signatures, he was shut down and denied. Why? Why would you shut down a group of congressmen and women from passing a crime bill? Why would you shut down a group of congressmen and congresswomen from trying to pass a crime bill? This guy was charging a hill, warning the American people. Something is coming. Something is happening. But 25 signatures is enough to petition the government that we need a crime bill. 1 is enough, but 25 signatures, folks? Something is not right. The question that I have the government are all these congressmen, because you call me schizophrenic. The Department of Veterans Affairs called me schizophrenic for reporting silent weapon attacks and spying and tracking. They call me schizophrenic. Are these congressmen and women right there schizophrenic? Are they schizophrenic for trying to pass this crime bill? Are they schizophrenic for trying to pass this crime bill? You're diagnosing Americans as schizophrenia for reporting this. Why would you diagnose them if these congressmen are trying to pass a crime bill? Why didn't this crime bill get passed 4 times? Now let's go inside the crime bill. What is it asking us? What is it asking the American people to do? And we got to go visit that. What was he trying to tell us? If you look at the crime bill, H.R. 2977 Special Preservation Act, signed on October 2nd, 2001. Look at the crime bill. Go into definitions. Go into definitions. Go into your definitions. Read the definitions. The term space means all space extending upward in altitude of greater than 60 kilometers above the surface of the earth and any celestial bodies in such space. The term weapon means a weapon system. A weapon system means a device capable of any of the following: damaging or destroying an object, whether in outer space, in the atmosphere, or here on Earth, by firing 1 or more projectiles to collide with that object. Detonating 1 or more explosive devices in close proximity to that object. Directing the source of energy, including molecular, atomic energy, subatomic particle beams, electromagnetic radiation, plasma, extremely low frequency, known as ELF, or ultra low frequency, energy radiation against that object, or any other unacknowledged or as yet undeveloped means. Inflicting death or injury on or damaging or destroying a person or the biological life, bodily health, mental health, or physical and economical well-being of a person. Read the definitions. Why did you block a congressman from passing a crime bill? And was this man schizophrenia, delusional, wholly incredible? Who's going to investigate this? It's a 72-year silent war, folks. And it's not stopping. It's getting better. You get me so far. We're going to continue on. Dennis Kucinich had a team of experts. And those experts testified that they knew what was going on. They knew about psychotronic war. And Dr. Carol Rosin was part of Dennis Kucinich's team.
The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in '74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Cal, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late.
It's all a lie. It's all a lie.
There's a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization of space is now first being based upon the evil empire, the Russians. There are many enemies, he said, against whom we're going to build this space-based weapon system. The first of whom was the Russians, which was existing at that time. Then there would be terrorists. Then there would be third world countries. Now we call them rogue nations or nations of concern. Then there would be asteroids. And then he would repeat to me over and over. And the last card, the last card, the last card would be the extraterrestrial threat. Well, at the time, I kind of laughed when he said asteroids, and when he said extraterrestrials, I knew I wasn't going to deal with that subject. And now we hear in the news just today, this week, that they've slid in another enemy. Only this time we're going to protect our satellites. In other words, we have to have some reason to spend these trillions, to waste these dollars. There's a lie being told to everyone that the weaponization...
That was Dr. Karen Rosin, part of Kucinich's team. She was part of Congressman Kucinich's team. Okay? Dr. Karen Rosin, you can contact her office. She's got her own webpage. You can contact her office. Okay, she's got a webpage. There she is right there. She'll give you more information about how these weapons are being used against Americans. She testified she was part of Congressman Kucinich's team. Okay? She was part of Congressman Kucinich's team. I think she's right there. Yeah, Dr. Karen Rosin. Read the article there. Okay, Dr. Carolyn Rosin, okay? You can't make this stuff up, folks, okay? Now that Kucinich couldn't pass a crime bill, we had President Barack Obama and the Joe Biden administration, which I thought is the most corrupt president in the world. These people were tech giant freaks. They were trying to sell the implant and targeting of Americans to make a profit, and they were all involved in that, okay? President Barack Obama took testimony of over 300 Americans being assaulted with these deadly weapons. And I want you to hear this. But what he finished saying is that he's not going to help Americans, that they're going to continue on killing us. Who's liable? That's for you to answer. Here we go. Right into President Barack Obama's Bioethics Commission. And you have to remember, Obama was a lawyer. Obama was a lawyer. But I'm nuts. I'm schizophrenic. And like I said, they're killing people overnight. So I have to show you my evidence, man. I mean, you cannot deny this. You know, I mean, you're calling me schizophrenic, man. I'm schizophrenic. I got ESP. I'm nuts, okay? I'm nuts, but I'm going to keep on beating the same damn drum until we get some sense in these idiots. This is President Barack Obama's commission. This is addressing to President Barack Obama as targeted individuals.
The most important thing in life will always be the people in this room. Right?
President Obama and citizens of the world. We are TIs.
Targeted individuals. And law-abiding citizens being targeted.
Every day of our lives.
By all levels of government and outside agencies.
Using military-grade, highly sophisticated,
And harmful technologies designed to destroy our lives.
For absolutely no reason at all.
Support us in ending our torture now.
Hi, my name's Terry. I'm a registered nurse. I'm a TI.
I'm Tom. I'm a TI.
I'm Mary, and I'm a TI.
Hi, my name is Julie, and I'm a registered nurse, and I am a TI.
Hello, I'm Gloria. I'm a grandmother of 4, an entrepreneur. I'm a TI.
Hi, my name is Denise. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm a TI.
Hi, my name is Karma. I'm a grandmother, I'm a nurse, and I am a TI.
Hi, my name is Franz. According to Buddha, I'm a TI.
Hi, my name is Steve. I'm a proud father too, and I am a TI.
We are TIs, targeted individuals. Google us.
That was addressed to President Barack Obama. Okay? So you can't make this stuff up, folks. Americans are being victimized, are being targeted. Okay? Let's go into the hearing, to the Presidential Commission hearing. Okay? The commission took place back in 2011. Obama was a part of it. They were there testifying. Americans were testifying. Okay? They were all part of the commission. President Barack Obama took testimony of the commission. People attended. There was Dr. Amy Gutman in charge. President Barack Obama, who initiated it. And then some attendants with Dr. John Hall from San Antonio, Texas. Okay? Let's hear some of the complaints from these victims, okay? Because it's serious accusations, folks. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. I want to go into a mother who's been victimized here, and here's her testimony. Then we'll hear her video. That's her written testimony to President Barack Obama. Then we're going to jump into her testimony. It's a mother of 2, mother and child being victimized.
Pennsylvania. This commission has spoken of a long history of abuse of the human research subject.
Although no one mentioned MKUltra today, President Clinton recently apologized for this. My young child and I have been used as non-consensual test subjects. We have been subjected to COINTELPRO-like stalking, remote neural monitoring, and electromagnetic torture, resulting in psychological and physical damage. And I won't go into the details of that because I have 4 pages written in here that is very similar to Connie's testimony. Please do not wait 70 years to investigate this. I ask Dr. Amy Gutman to begin today. There is new work for the Commission for Human Subject Protection on our shores. And please give us a dramatic response, Susan, and please give us a congressional hearing. Thank you. Thank you.
It's a mother and her daughter, or mother and child, okay, being victimized. Let's go into another one here. This guy was Michael Shanefield. What I thought was interesting was attempted to be inducted by a naval special ops guy. A naval special ops guy approached this Michael Shanefield to try to induct him into the program, giving him a device and then going out and attacking Americans. And I want you to hear his testimony. Okay, it's all a white collar crime, folks. That's Michael Shanefield to President Barack Obama. Michael Shanefield, and here's his presentation to President Barack Obama. He was approached by a naval diver who tried to sell him the weapon to go on and attack Americans in secrecy. Okay, that's wrong.
The use of an auditory.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
My name is Michael Shanefield. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama. The question that I brought to the board is that in 2000 I was approached by a Navy sub diver, and he brought to my attention the use of an auditory weapon that he stole from the United States Navy. Yeah, he told me about this weapon that he stole from the Navy. And he told me how the weapon would affect the central nervous system of a human. And he wanted me to go out and assist him in certain things. And in 2006, my life changed. I woke up one night and I got a strong electrical shock in the center of my chest. From that, I started to have problems with my heart. I started having my jimmies, irregular rhythms. Went in and to the hospital. The doctors determined that I was getting electrical shock through my chest. Then I went in and had an operation, ablation. And now this just keeps going on. From then it went to my lungs. Then from there it went to my kidneys. From there it went to my bladder. From there it went to my colon. And it keeps going on and on and on. Medically, I've been looked at.
That's presented to President Barack Obama. That is evidence. They should have investigated this guy's accusations, investigated that Navy diver, and probably taken him to jail for espionage, for a federal crime. Okay, here's some more cases here. Okay, there's another female that was sexually assaulted, Connie Marshall. Well, I'll let you hear here. She was sexually assaulted with these weapons. Let me let you hear the complaint of Connie Marshall to President Obama.
Anybody or any.
Mrs. Marshall.
Good afternoon. My name is Connie Marshall. I'm a former mayoral candidate from Louisville, Kentucky. I have never been involved in any criminal activity. I found a document in my bank account that said, problem with Kentucky government, check federal government paperwork and file before releasing information to anyone. I am an 8-year victim survivor of assaults by directed energy weapons. The torture I've experienced consists of body overheating, body extremely cold, seizures, heart pain, earaches, itching behind eyes, burning behind eyes, swelling, headaches, involuntary movement of my limbs, exhaustion, speeding and heart racing, hair coming out by the handfuls as if I'd had chemotherapy, mind paralysis, being hypnotized or placed in a trance-type state, being tracked by a drone or satellite, controlled dreams, sleep deprivation, V2K, which is voice to skull, projected sound, extreme muscle spasms, and extreme muscle cramps, being made to fall down, blue circles around the pupils of my eyes, and I'm here and you can look at them if you like. Low frequency noises in my home, high frequency noises in my home, sexual stimulation. Numerous electrical appliances in my home are destroyed. 4 computers, 2 fax machines, 7 telephones, 4 CD players, VCR, DVD players, electrical igniter switch on my furnace, washer and dryer, air conditioner, also my car radio, CD player, and engine were destroyed. I am watched in my home 24 hours a day and followed around everywhere I go, though I do not have a criminal history. When I ran for mayor in my town, I was also attacked at debates and forums. My website is www.justiceforallcitizens.com. Thank you. And I would like to leave these flyers with you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, those are Americans who had a chance to speak to President Barack Obama, you know. And so after the gathering of all this evidence and all these people that testified, and you can take a look at some of these names here, I'll give them to you. These are people who testified in front of President Barack Obama. They're the names. And the list goes on and on. I can sit here and we can converse all that, but I'm just keeping it simple. The question I have here is that President Barack Obama is a lawyer. Not only a lawyer, he specializes in civil rights. If you take the testimony of Americans and you have blood in your hands and you don't pass an executive order after promising Americans, who is liable for all this? Who's liable for the history of this silent weapon? Why isn't there any laws passed against Americans or saving Americans? Why? When will that happen? We're stuttering and abandoning bills right now. We got 3 bills for the CIA. What about the American people who are being targeted in neighborhoods? Okay? I want you to hear the promises, and I'm going to turn it over to the letter written by President Barack Obama that incites the war to continue inciting war. Okay, you can't make this stuff up, folks. This is promises by President Barack Obama. What he promised the American people is that if you're a part of his scientific experiment, you're going to be treated with respect and fairness. He promised it, and he also promised a task force. But that's not the case. Obama's gone, nothing's been done, and Americans are dying. Your children are going to be dying. Okay, here we go. Broken promises.
Biggest violations of medical ethics ever perpetrated on U.S. citizens. This week, medical experts and others are meeting to make sure something like this never happens again. And leading that effort is Amy Gutmann. She heads the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues, and she is also the president of the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Gutmann, thanks for being with us. This is not a single incident. We've actually had many of these things happen. What is the purpose of your commission? Are we worried that these types of things are still happening today?
Allie, we can't know whether these things are happening today unless we have a fact-finding mission, and that's what President Obama has asked the Presidential Commission on Bioethics to do, to actually meet with experts and ask them, what is it today that would prevent these things from happening again? They've happened too many times in our history, and we want to make sure, and the president wants to make sure, that we can assure the American public that if they are part of a scientific experiment or a medical experiment, they will be treated with respect and fairly. So we don't know right now how the United States is relative to the rest of the world, and that's why the president has asked me to convene an international task force of experts. And those experts are going to sit down with me, and we're going to actually discuss how different countries and the United States fare in this regard. And we should come up with a report by year's end that can inform the public as well as the president of where we stand.
Okay, we know you're having more hearings in May. We'll follow this along with you. Very curious to see what happens. Dr. Amy Gutman is the chair of the Presidential Commission for the Study of Bioethical Issues and the president of the University of Pennsylvania.
Broken promises. Broken promises by a president who had civil rights, who had a duty to present and represent the American people, who had a duty to write an executive order for the 72-year silent war. Why didn't it happen? Instead, what he said was that, well, to hell with the American people. Kill them all. Kill them all. That's basically what happened here, okay? The letter indicates from his cabinet that we're going to continue on killing Americans. To continue on killing Americans, okay? To continue on killing Americans. All right? Continue on killing Americans. You know, we're no one. We you know, I mean, come on, folks. I mean, you know, when do we have the right to when do we have the right to freedom? When do we have a right to due process of a law to stop all this? We don't consent to this stuff, okay? They built this thing around us, what for? Stay tuned. Yes. What? I told you. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I told you, Chloe, you have to call me in advance, Chloe. I'm tired of this. You're going to have to let me know in advance next time. A week early. Give me 1 week early. Give me 1 week in advance, Chloe. I told that's my rule, Chloe. Because I cannot be going through life and then having to, you know, to plan it and then cut my plans because you want to call me. Yes, well, I told you at the restaurant, Chloe. I said, let me know. Well, you just told, that's my rule, Chloe. I have rules. Okay. Well, what do you think, Chloe? Chloe, that's not for you to know. That's for me to know. Okay? Bring him over here, Chloe. When are you going to drop him off? Well, let me know. Don't wait. Don't. Let me know. Chloe. Okay, so like I said, the whole point of this video is to find out who is responsible for the lives of the American people that are dying. Okay, they're trying to take over our institutions, our schools, to attack your children. They're trying to go into military installations with drones. Why? Because Americans are insurance card holders and they have to make a profit. They're going to unleash drones to go and attack military personnel. But they were blocked. They tried to put these antennas in our institutions, but they were blocked by Robert RFK. Okay? The game system, the virtual surveillance that we're in is horrifying, is damaging, and it will cause cancer. Okay? Constantly attacking someone will cause cancer. Now, last but not least, the letter to the American people, denying the people the right to equal protection of the law. Okay? You can't make this stuff up, folks. This is hard facts. Hard facts. Like I said, we were denied protection of the law. We were neglected by our government. We were neglected by a lawyer. You know, and so here it is. There's a letter. Letter says that he's not going to help American people. He's not going to help the American people. Basically saying to continue on with the war, continue on killing Americans. This is a 72-year silent war. A 72-year silent war. You saw the facts. A 72-year silent war of negligence with the intent to kill more Americans, with the intent to cite war. Who's going to investigate this and who's going to stop that? Thank you, and God bless America. Did I say thank you? Oh, did I say thank you? Oh, thank you and God bless. See, they got control of my mind already. Thank you and God bless America.
When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, a decent respect requires that they declare the causes which impel to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to establish new government. We therefore, the representatives.
Don't know how much time has passed. I'm looking at you through the glass. Don't know how much time has passed. Oh God, it feels like forever. No one ever tells you that forever feels like home. Sitting all alone inside your head. How do you feel? That is the question. But I forget you don't expect an easy answer. When something like a soul becomes initialized and folded up like paper dolls and little notes, you can't expect the bitter folks. So while you're outside looking in, describing what you see, remember what you're staring at is me. Cause I'm looking at you through the glass. Don't know how much time has passed. All I know is that it feels like forever. No one ever tells you that forever feels like home. Sitting all alone